In this position, Hans Niemann pushes his pawn to g5. He's playing against Nguyen Thai Dai. The position is roughly around equal. Black is playing on the king side, white is playing on the queen side. Hans brings his rook up. Maybe the idea is g4, rook can swing over to h6, he can double the rooks here. Meanwhile, Thai Dai is not stopping with his play on the queen side. Rook comes to f8. Okay, we can take the pawn on b6. We can also play f3. He does take the pawn on b6, asking Hans, what does he want to do? I think g4. Maybe that's the plan. No, he takes on b4. But now, f3 is a super strong move. And in fact, it's Thai Dai who is better here. Hans Niemann seems to have made an incorrect decision. f3 by Thai Dai. And now Hans, well, he doesn't have play on the king side. His queen side pawn is falling. He goes h5. He wants to open up the position. He goes queen f2, a safe move. But queen takes b4 was actually nice, because after g4 takes and takes, this position is fine for white. I mean, it's no way there's a mate. The knight defends the rook here. But he goes queen f2, queen f4. Now takes the central pawn on d4. At this point, black is a pawn down. So Hans still somehow believing in his position. Rook comes to a5. Very interesting way to get the rook activated. Pawn to g4, pushing forward, trying to break open the position. Queen comes back to g2, f2, and now queen takes queen, taken. And he takes, king takes f2, rook to g6, threatening the move, g3 check. He pushes his pawn to g3. Nice move there by Thai Dai. Time is of the essence. Just 2 minutes left for Thai Dai. Has to make 9 more moves. Rook g1 played by him. He could have taken the pawn on h5. Maybe that was possible. But rook f6 now, attacking the f3 pawn. Although it's defended, he goes up king e3. And now rook g6. He plays it again there. And maybe Thai Dai can repeat. King f2. Is Hans okay with a draw? Maybe he's not. He wants to win this tournament, and for that he needs to win this game. Maybe b3. It's not a bad idea. He plays h4 here. Well, if you take here rook g1, maybe it's fine for black. But g4 is a nice move by Van Nguyen. d5 played. Wow, we are on move 35. 5 more moves to make in 1 minute. He takes, rook takes d5, bishop a4 played. And now the best move is c5, protecting the pawn, but he goes back there. Bishop c2, attacking the d3 pawn. Also, the b6 pawn is hanging, king e3, and now the position has equalized once again. Look at Hans Niemann. Pushes the pawn to b3, but now c5. And b2, play rook b5 and give up an exchange. But he plays rook b5 first. Well, he's worried about his flag. 17 seconds. And he has to make only 1 more move. So Thai Dai will reach the move number 40 here. And Hans Niemann gets up to check. He's like, okay, I have to make 2 more moves in 48 minutes. Can I risk it here? He goes rook a8, pawn to f4. And that is a huge mistake on the 40th move. Rook d6 is a very powerful move attacking here. It's difficult to see, but actually it's very logical. You go rook d6, pawn to d4, and now rook a4, and there's just no way to defend d4 and c4 both. It's impossible. So e5, you go back. If d5, you take the pawn. If c5, you take this pawn. So that way it's winning. Well, Hans Niemann actually sits down now in his chair because he needs to play rook d6, and Thai Dai is like, okay, I need to now just settle down in. And after a good 10 minutes thought, Hans does play rook d6, and he's totally winning here. It's an amazing position with white having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all pawns together, and black double pawns here, and in fact black is even a pawn down. But somehow black's pieces are so good. The b pawn, the rook here. And Nguyen now has to find his move. He's thinking calmly. He must be tired with all the time pressure that he had. He goes d4. And now, very simple move, rook a4. But, well, Hans is ready with his move. He plays rook a3. Not the best move here. But he's threatening b2 to give a check. Maybe there's d5. And that's actually a nice move because d5, if b2, I have king d4, making space. He plays it, pawn to d5, good move there by Nguyen. And now b2 check, king must go up. King must go up. No, he goes back. That's not a good move. That's not at all a good move. Now rook a2, keeping an eye on the king. And you can see Hans Niemann is stunned by his opponent's move there. Why did he not go king d4? And by the way, Nguyen is down to 4 minutes already. Rook a2 played. Brilliant. And now the problem is, after king e3, there's b1 queen, rook takes, bishop takes, rook takes, and h2 is hanging. He first goes back rook d8. I mean, b1 was also fine, but rook d8, he's trying to get his rook in, like maybe this way. And now check. King goes back to f2. And another beautiful move. Rook f8, because now f4 is hanging. He plays f5, and now bishop takes e4 is very powerful move. But he plays rook a2, which is also good. He goes king e3, king f3. 1 minute left. Nguyen again under time pressure. Queens. Rook takes. Bishop takes. Rook takes. And rook takes knight. You are now a rook up. But look at these pawns. These are insanely 6 powerful pawns. Pawn to c6. Is that risky? He pushes. Now this position would have been completely fine for white if black did not have the pawns here. These pawns are just too strong, especially the h3 pawn. He takes on c6. By the way, b7, just rook b8 does the trick. So take, and now rook c2, very important move, putting the rook behind the pawn, plays it. If b7, there's rook b8. If c7, then h2, an important move to push forward. He finds it, h2. And now the thing is, if you play b7, I have rook takes c7. He goes rook h1, but now he's going to lose this. These pawns, rook c6 should do the trick, or even rook b2. He plays rook b2 and takes on h2. I mean, if you take on h2, then b7 and white is the one who's better. But clearly Hans can take this pawn. He just takes it. Rook takes b6. Taken here, and now he's a rook up. g5 played. Okay, to convert this is not at all difficult. Rook c6. Rook h4 taken. And Hans Niemann now takes the pawn on c7. Only 2 pawns for white for a rook, and that is not enough. That is not enough in any position, especially the rooks are super active. Hans Niemann is going to score another win in this tournament, and that is going to propel him upwards in this tournament. Rook goes back to h1. Rook c4. And now rook e1 played. And king f8. And he plays king f4. Rook e7, waiting. Also waits here as white. The way to win is to start entering from the side. Yes, Rook a7 played. He goes Rook to b1. K4, attacking the pawn on e4. And he goes Rook e1. King e7 played. King comes up. He wants to push the pawns in the center. King f6 played. And now e5 is not possible. It's pinned. If you move the rook, e4 hangs. So he waits. And rook a1. Now check is coming in. King coming in. Too many things falling for Nguyen. Well, it's time for him to call it a day. Hans Niemann wins the game and he moves on to 6.5 points, only half a point behind the leaders Nodirbek and Sindarov. And somehow Hans and Thai Dai won. Analyzing here, what a game this was. Truly insane and complex game. I think such games do not happen often. They are just so complicated. And you can see Hans Niemann, well, he's also exhausted here. So is Thai Dai one. For him, this tournament is a great learning experience. But how much can he handle? He has 6 draws and 5 losses. And well, 2 more games to go. It's never ever easy. But I think if he takes these games as learning experiences, he will come back stronger from this experience.